May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. I am often reminded how we live in several different worlds all at the same time. We're halfway through the month of November already. We just celebrated Armistice Day, Veterans Day, when the treaty to end the war of all wars was signed. World War I ended, but very soon afterwards, so would the peace that the treaty ushered in. Thanksgiving is a mere 11 days away, and believe it or not, we are 5 weeks away from Christmas. Scary thought. We are working our way towards the end of 2025. We're also coming to the end of the liturgical year. Next week, we will celebrate Christ the King Sunday, the celebration of Christ being the true King and the true ruler over all the world. In 2 weeks' time, the new liturgical year begins again with the start of Advent, as we prepare for the coming of Christ into the world. It is a time of endings and a time of beginnings. One age folds and another begins. Our gospel today is all about endings and beginnings and the fear that is usually part of both. Our gospel is about being prepared for the worst, knowing that the best is yet to come. In today's reading from Luke, we have Jesus and the disciples on their way to the temple in Jerusalem. It will not be long before Jesus is put to death. He knows his hour is coming, and he's trying to get his disciples ready for what will happen after his death. But their minds are really on none of that. The disciples were discussing the fabulous temple that Herod built. It was huge and could be seen from miles away. It was unlike anything they were used to, and it was the holiest site in the Jewish faith. Supposedly, it was inlaid with gold and jewels and literally shone in the sunlight. I can just imagine this ragtag bunch of country boys following Jesus to the big city, Jerusalem. It would be like someone being raised in rural Missouri and then going to New York City for the very first time. Imagine going from the cornfields in Missouri and then standing in the middle of Times Square, looking up at the skyscrapers, hearing the noise of the traffic, smelling hot dogs from street vendors. There is so much to take in that one's senses are overwhelmed. Going to New York City for the first time certainly inspires awe, if nothing else. So there are the 13 of them walking along and discussing the riches and awe-inspiring temple. But Jesus warns them, as for the things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another, and all will be thrown down. Imagine being in New York City for the very first time on the morning of 9/11. Imagine seeing that what just took your breath away becoming a pile of rubble. Seeing the Twin Towers, the iconic symbol of world commerce and prosperity, come down. If there was ever an apocalyptic image burned into our brains, surely it is of that. The disciples want to know what signs to look for that will point to the temple's destruction. And Jesus tells them that there will be false prophets coming and using his name and telling people that the end is near. Jesus says that wars and famines will take place, as will plagues and earthquakes. Kind of sounds like today, doesn't it? He also tells them that things will get very bad for them as they profess their faith in him. They will be betrayed by family and friends, thrown in jail, taken before kings and governors to justify themselves in their beliefs. There is a purpose to all of this. God doesn't cause this, but he does redeem it. This isn't about God being capricious and arbitrary. Jesus tells his disciples that during this time, in the worst of the times that they can imagine, they will have an opportunity to testify to the hope they have in Jesus. It is their hope and their expression of it that give them the endurance needed to get through the awful times ahead. Jesus wants his disciples to be alert, to be watchful, and most of all, to not be afraid. When soldiers or police recruits go through basic training, they are trained in a skill called situational awareness. Situational awareness is being able to take in everything that is happening, to be aware of everything about the surroundings and what the surroundings and the situation might be telling them. When someone is situationally aware, they are best able to make quick life and death decisions about what needs to be done. And situational awareness can literally be a case of life or death. Situational awareness is in contrast to situational apathy. In situational apathy, nothing is done because the individual believes that whatever action may be taken isn't going to make a difference. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and nothing I or anyone else does can change that fact. So we choose to do nothing. This is unchristian, my friends. It is cynicism at its worst, and it leads to missed opportunity for carrying out God's mission. We fall into situational apathy when we become overwhelmed by the problems facing us, and we throw up our hands in futility. Roberta Bondi, a retired theologian at Emory University in Atlanta, writes, "It is tempting to think that nothing really is done for anybody by seemingly small, everyday things when the problems are so systemic. As my teachers remind me, however, and these teachers are the desert mothers and fathers that she was an expert in. Well, my teachers remind me, however, the truth is just the opposite. Without little things, there are no big changes." Mother Teresa made the same point when she wrote, "We can never do great things. We can only do small things with great love." Apathy speaks to the loss of hope, and Jesus' message is pure hope. When we take on the mantle of apathy, we lose the promise that's been given to us, and we lose the opportunity to do the mission work that God has called us to do. There's one other camp we can fall into, and that is situational obsession. In situational obsession, we become paralyzed by the future and our fear of it. We are situationally obsessed when we listen to doomsday preachers, we believe in the stories of Armageddon, and feel that there is nothing good or holy about the time that we are in right now. We need only remember the likes of Jim Jones and the Jonestown tragedy in the jungle of Guyana in November of 1978 to see how dangerous situational obsession can be. Situational obsession is driven not by obedience to God, but out of fear of this world. Situational apathy and situational obsession are not what Jesus desires for us. Jesus was telling his disciples, and we can never forget, that we are always in that crowd in the gospel. Jesus is always speaking to us. And he's telling us that what happens now, today, is always as important as what will happen in the future. Martin Luther was once asked what he would do if tomorrow was the day of judgment. He thought for a minute and then said, "If tomorrow was the day of judgment, then I would want to plant an apple tree." My friends, It is time to plant some apple trees. It is time to plant the seeds that will grow in the soil of Trinity. We are in our stewardship campaign. We are in a transitional time that some might find scary and uncertain. Some may see the challenges of modern-day Christianity as played out in the life of congregations as hopeless, or at the very least, dire. Some may feel like giving up. They may feel like nothing is going to change for the better. But that is not what we are called to as Christians. The world does not need our apathy or obsessions. It does not need our words of cynicism. It needs our words of hope. Jesus wants us to know that the world is important, that it desperately needs our attention and our gifts and our care. It needs our small actions done with great love. It needs our small efforts to make big changes. We have work to do right up until the very last second of this world, and we cannot quit 1 second sooner. When we live in hope, when we keep our eyes and our hearts open, when we undergo terrible tragedies and trials, we do so in the knowledge that Christ died for us and is with us. And as a result, we can speak words of hope to others. Christ lays it on the line with his disciples. He tells us up front how hard it will get. And he also tells us that by keeping focused on God's promises and not on what the world promises, we will be given the strength to endure. And in enduring, we will be given our very souls. Amen.